One, two, three.
Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from our secret ice fortress and laboratory high in the Swiss Alps. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. Keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground as Sumo and Smokestack direct your attention to a higher dimension. Are you ready? Stand by.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel like my only friend is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. I drive on the streets 'cause she's my companion. I walk through her hills 'cause she knows who I am. She sees my good deeds and kisses me when I never worry, that is a lie. But I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Came up to the place I love. Take me all the way. Good morning. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, the song I just sang is wrong. At least it is now. It used to be correct. It's hard to believe that there's nobody out there. It's hard to believe I'm all alone. At least I have her love. The city, she loves me. Lonely as I am, together we cry. Yeah, I sang it wrong. Did you catch what's wrong now?
No, besides phlegm? What's wrong?
Are you familiar with the song?
I mean, I am, but it sounded okay to me. I didn't catch anything.
Okay, I'm going to play the part that's wrong again.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel like I don't have a partner. Sometimes I feel that my only friend, here it comes, ready? Is the city I live in, the city of angels. Lonely as I am, together we cry. Catch it?
No, that sounded exactly correct to me.
Well, I said city of angels, remember?
Well, that's what he says in the song.
That was in the previous timeline. Before the Mandela effect kicked in.
What is it now?
Now, if you listen to the song, any recording of the song you've ever had, he says city of angel, singular, which doesn't make sense.
What?
If you listen to any Red Hot Chili Peppers recording now, since the timeline shift, he says, the city I live in, the city of angel, and doesn't hit the S at all. Lonely as I am, together, which makes no sense. Because it's the city of angels. It's not the city of angel.
But I mean, couldn't it be that just everybody heard angels because Los Angeles is the city of angels and they're from California?
It could be that. It could be that. However, I'm going to present some compelling evidence today. The Mandela effect may, in fact, be real.
Awesome.
However, we have physical evidence of it. Physical evidence. We call it in the biz, if this passes for a business, whatever this is.
Yeah.
We call that, we call it residue. We have Mandela effect residue.
Ooh, cool.
You can point to. But first, I will not join Rockfin. Stop asking.
You will not
Stop asking everyone.
Rockfin? People want you on Rockfin?
I will not join Rockfin. Stop asking. First of all, people keep suggesting ways that we could do video. Like have a static image of us as cartoons or something.
Yeah.
And some of that would probably work. Because some YouTube videos, for whatever reason, are like nothing. It's like just some image playing back and forth while people talk.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be pretty popular. And so maybe we do that. But Rockfin is this new, allegedly free speech platform everyone's flocking to, you know?
Uh-huh.
It's the latest one. There's always a new one. That everyone's like, oh, it's free speech, dibba-dibba-doo. And then you go there, and A, there's nobody there. And then, and B, then they cancel you for something.
Don't you get paid in their weird proprietary crypto also?
You get paid in their weird cryptocurrency. I don't want their rock coins or whatever they are. It's like being paid in Canadian money. Well, what are you going to do with that, you know?
Canada is fake internet country.
It is. I mean, like, if you ever use Canadian money, you feel like, I don't know, you feel like you're lying just when you hand it over the counter. Because it's all like colorful Monopoly paper.
Well, my experience is that Canadians kind of feel that way too, because everywhere you go, like if you give them dollars, they're like, heck yeah, I'll take dollars, U.S. dollars.
It's a pretend currency. Canada is a pretend country. You know, they're just up there pretending to not be the 51st state, but they are. And so Rockfin, I don't know. You know, I follow Owen Benjamin.
Uh-huh.
And they invited Owen on some months ago. And then the CEO called him up recently personally and said, we're canceling you off the platform.
Really?
Which I guess is nice that the CEO himself notified him, you know, and was like, had a personal conversation with him.
What was his offense?
He made up a mask, like a face mask of a greedy Jew. And he was wearing it and going like, man, give me your foreskin, like that. Right? Which I understand how some people could see as a bit offensive.
Where's your sense of fun?
But he also has a mask of like a dumb white guy. He has one for every ethnicity. He has one for blacks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he recently did a great bit about Shaquille O'Neal getting mad that one NBA player wouldn't take a vaccine. You know?
Uh-huh.
And he did a Shaquille O'Neal voice, and he was like, listen, man, if the Jew says you take a vaccine, you take a vaccine. Otherwise, you don't get your bananas. Right? And it was funny.
Oh.
And he made fun of all the races in there, but he just, I don't know, I guess. You know, I think that all racial groups should be equally mockable.
I think it's the only way we're ever going to have racial harmony in this country is if we all just make fun of each other.
If we all make fun of Jews, right?
No, all of them, everybody. You know, just make it all a laugh. Because that's like,
right,
as you said on last episode, laughing at things is a great way to fight the evil, and this racism.
That's how you fight the both.
Racism grievance industry is an evil in this country, so let's laugh at it. That's my policy.
I agree with you, and I don't think that Owen Benjamin should have been canceled, but it just goes to show you that so-called free speech platforms seldom have the stomach for actual free speech.
So true.
You know, like
because here's the thing: they've all got investors. Nobody's bootstrapping these companies, and if the investor comes in and says, "Yeah, I know you're a free speech platform, but this speech
is a bit
you got to yank
much."
it." No, and this is with mega corporations too. any publicly traded company, if their stock is listed on the big indexes or is invested in by the big like main mutual funds from Vanguard and BlackRock and these companies, then those guys are on the board or they have great influence on the boards of these companies. And so the companies are really being run by the investment firms. And that's it doesn't matter what the stated principles of the company are. If the investment company can yank your stock from the index and crash its value overnight forever, or sell its stake that's being held in this mutual fund, then you run the company, like bottom line.
Yeah, you do. You do, which is why, I mean, the stated principles of a company matter a little bit, I guess. Like, when Google used to have as one of their principles, don't be evil. That's how you knew they were evil.
Yeah.
Because only evil people would need that as a reminder.
Yeah.
Like, if I went to someone's house and by their bedside every morning when they woke up was a sign that said, remember not to be evil.
Right.
I would be like, huh.
Maybe not let them babysit your kids.
Yeah, I don't know if I want you around that much. If you have to wake up and remind yourself, don't be evil today. And that's how you knew that Google would be a source of great human suffering, which it has been. So I guess the stated principles matter, but I don't know. Do you want to join Rafa? We could join if you want to do it.
What would be what would be the point of doing that? Is this so we can do video?
Rocky coins or whatever the thing is.
I'm not really interested in their crypto. I mean, if they're gonna cancel Owen, you know.
Yeah, this is the thing. Why the crypto thing makes increasingly less sense the more the cryptocurrencies bloom. Like, if there's a billion of them, what value do any of them have? It's like Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they're printing patty bucks.
Well, the industry's kind of poison pilling itself.
It is.
By hyping every new coin as, you know, this big thing and pump and dump. And you can't, if you do that enough, yeah, some people are making money, but whatever potential it had is going to be destroyed in that.
I think we are entering the second tech bubble.
Oh, like we're in it, buddy. Yeah. Oh, the crash. Yeah.
I think it's in the process of beginning to pop.
Agree.
Well, like the cryptocurrency things are down. They all peaked in November, as did all the tech stocks. Netflix is down. They're all down. And I think people just got a little bit, it was like too many apps. Too many apps to choose from. And everyone thought this is great for a while. And now we're like, wait a minute. These are all boring. And they don't do anything. So, pop. And that'll be good. I think we'll contract and then we'll regrow into some new horror. But first, before we talk about things today, we should thank listener Trevor Whitehead for his generous $200 donation to buy me a coffee.
Wow, what a guy.
What a guy. Now listen, listeners, this is the sort of listener we need, that sort of dedication. So what I want you to do, all of you, is get on your calendar app, set a reminder for every Friday. And every Friday, donate $200. And then imagine how much different this show would be. It'd be massively different.
Oh yeah, I could afford to do full-time video production. We could do video.
If everyone donated $200 a week, now if someone says that's unreasonable, so you can't ask that much for a podcast. Can't I though? You know? Isn't that
kind of just did?
I kind of just did. So, let's talk about this. Before we get into Mandela effect, I want to talk about the silliness of war crimes as a concept.
Hey, before we talk about silliness of war crimes, I would like to congratulate listener Lurker on his 651 unit total serum testosterone level.
Oh, interesting. Is he bald?
No.
Okay. See, there's been this constant bugbear that testosterone levels equal baldness. And I don't think that's true. I think it's actually the other like meta hormone.
I think that's just something bald people say.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think it is too. I think balding is largely a genetic thing unrelated from testosterone levels.
Well,
but I'm not, because in the wild, right? Many animals with the highest testosterone actually have the most hair.
There you go.
Like lions. You can tell which lion is going to win a fight with greater than 50% chance by looking at which one has the fullest mane. Because the fuller mane indicates a higher testosterone level, usually.
Yeah.
And I think a similar thing is true for silverback gorillas. There's something about the color of their back, like how silvery it is, and testosterone levels in gorillas. So I'm not 100% sold on that. I think that is something bald people say. And it gets confused because when you do take a lot of steroids, which is artificially injecting testosterone, that does tend to make people have receding hairlines faster. But I think that's because you're messing up your natural hormone levels more than just the testosterone itself.
Well, Lurker would tell you that his impressive blood chemistry is due to eating animal fat and not seed oils.
Yeah, the seed oil thing, I don't know. Does he subscribe that it prevents you from getting sunburn?
I don't know. I have to ask him about that. I've never seen him sunburn. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't personally do the avoid some food because it's too much work.
Yeah.
When it's everywhere, you know. I'm still having throat issues, which is still good radio.
Well, this episode was only recorded 3 days after the last one, so
that's true. That's why
we're going to be all out of sync for the next week or two.
Right.
So, something crazy could have happened over the last week that you would expect us to talk about, and at present, we have no idea.
Yeah, or it happened and then it didn't happen again.
Right. It could have gotten Mandela out of there.
Mm-hmm. I've done a deep dive into Mandela effect, and there's some stuff that just is hard to explain.
I'm looking forward to that segment.
I mean, the Panama Canal's in the wrong place.
What?
So much stuff. So many things. But I was thinking about the silliness of the concept of war crimes as a thing. Because someone, they're still like going on every now and then. I mean, they largely forgot about Putin because the war got too boring for media.
Mm-hmm.
Or everyone's just like sitting around, artillery firing and waiting, which is yawn, No one cares. But they still every now and then will be like, Putin war crimes, And I was just, I've been thinking about how silly that was. And then someone brought up an old article from HuffPo. I think it was like 2013 or something, 2015.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. It was titled, "If Bush is a War Criminal, Then So Are Truman, LBJ, Nixon, and Obama." That's the title. And every right-thinking person was like, yeah. Of course they are. International law is nothing. It's nothing.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. And it's worth remembering as that tweet said some time ago, when people talk about war crimes, the U.S.'s official position is that if any American is ever tried in international court for a war crime, we'll invade the Netherlands.
Really?
That's the official on-paper law voted by the United States.
Yeah.
It's called the American Service Members Protection Act. Now think about that, right? What the American Service Members Protection Act, they passed this in 2002 because in 2001 we started doing a lot of war crimes. So, and which we would continue for the next 20 years. So, knowing that and feeling that some of our servicemen and women might feel a little iffy about doing some of the things they were asked to do, like shoot a kid or blow up a wedding. they said, listen, it's all good. That no one's ever going to try you for any of this. Just follow your orders and you're fine. And they said, what about International Criminal War Crimes Court? Didn't we just use depleted uranium shells on that little village of disabled lepers or whatever? And they're like, yeah, we did. And we understand your concerns. And so in 2002, they passed this act with Congress and George Bush. It was bipartisan, called the American Service Members Protection Act, which was quickly nicknamed the Hague Invasion Act, because it says, quote, it authorizes the U.S. president to free any American from the Hague, Netherlands, who's being held there by, quote, all means necessary.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is a big language for a country to say. If you have one of our people, we use all means necessary to free them. Right? And so, now people will be like, well, we're not really going to invade the Dutch, you know? And we won't, as long as they don't try us for war crimes. If they tried to do that, then we absolutely would. Because the U.S. dictates who gets to be a war criminal, and it's not us.
It wouldn't even be hard. I mean, we have all sorts of military bases in that area.
We already have a base there.
Yeah.
We could blow them up tomorrow.
You just like walk across the road and invade them.
Yeah, so they just did that to, there are 123 member states of the International Criminal War Crimes Court. The U.S. is not one of them. For whatever reason. But it has, through this act, given itself completely free license to do any war crime it wants and assured all of its soldiers that they will never, ever be charged for anything.
I don't know. I kind of think that's a good thing.
Maybe.
Because that court is probably gay.
I'm sure that it is.
And I resent the idea of any sort of like multinational, transnational governing body whatsoever.
I do too. Because it's silly. But I think the point is, I'm not a Russian shill or whatever, right? I mean, I'm more sympathetic to them than most. But
well, since the checks quit coming,
Putin, you've been behind on some payments. If you want us to keep shilling for you, how great would it be if Putin paid us money?
That'd be great. We could afford to do video, man.
In ruble coin or whatever their crypto is. But the idea...
We're not actually soliciting funds from the Russians, just...
I am.
No, don't. You don't want to...
You don't want to
make that joke.
If Russia wants to pay us money...
No.
Why would I turn it down?
This is how you get a visit.
Why would I turn down money from Russia? Our own listeners, aside from Trevor, don't pay anything.
Oh, no.
You know?
What if Trevor is Vladimir Putin?
He may be. In which case, I'm going to get some nesting dolls and borscht and just have a time. You know? Because allegiance on this show can be bought.
Not by a country we're at war with.
Well... Let's not be too hasty. It depends on... I mean, Edward Snowden hasn't talked bad about Putin, right?
Well,
he's a hero.
Right.
He's a hero. I mean, he lives in Russia now under their protection, so... Right. But he hasn't tweeted anything about this war at all.
Yeah.
You know? So where's his bravery now, Mr. Snowden? You know? So if he can be a hero and not criticize Putin, we can be a hero and not criticize Putin. You know, it all works out. But the point is, if Russia is guilty of war crimes, then the U.S. is tenfold.
I mean,
it's the same. You know, I mean, not even just recently, but like that article said, then all these other presidents are too. Like, yeah, I mean, if artillery striking a school allegedly is a war crime? What is nuclear bombing 2 cities full of civilians?
I was about to say.
I mean, that's like the biggest war crime ever.
Yeah.
Now, not that actually happened, as we've gone through before.
Uh-huh.
But they at least firebomb the cities, which is the same.
And also Dresden.
Dresden, right? I mean, like, the list of American war crimes is off the charts. It is tremendous. Invading countries for no cause. You know, Bin Laden wasn't even in Afghanistan. There was no reason to be there at all.
Nope.
You know? But this is the point. Any crime will be forgiven a nation except losing. And everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Right? If you lose, then everyone's like, meh, 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 and they hold it over you forever. As long as you win, nobody cares what you do. Or if they care, then you just shoot them. Right? Which is America's policy. I mean, a lot of people have looked at the war in Russia and thought Russia isn't doing great because Russia didn't immediately go through and bomb everything to hell. Which is the American way of doing warfare.
Right.
Like, I remember during the Iraq War, in the early days, whenever news would come on that we lost one American serviceman, people would be upset and be like, why didn't we nuke them? People would say that. Right? As though one American serviceman, like the idea of losing anybody was unacceptable, and that the other reverse of just blowing up the entirety of Baghdad with a nuclear bomb was more morally just than that. Now, that was intensified in its silliness by the fact that it would never happen because we don't have nuclear bombs. But that sort of moral calculus is pretty intense. But people are willing to engage in it all the time. And so war crimes don't function as, they don't mean anything. They function as the same way in modern propaganda that religion used to. It's just a moralistic cover for barbarism. You know. So in the past, like you'd say, like, oh, we have to defend Christendom from the dirty pagan towel heads, right? And that would dehumanize your enemy enough so you could chop their heads off and put them on sticks or whatever. Or the reverse, you know, you'd like the blasphemers, do not heed the words of Muhammad, yada, yada, Allahu Akbar, chop, chop, chop. But now nobody in the West believes in God anymore, at least not publicly. You know, I mean, God never comes up in politics. So religion can't serve that function, so you need a new moral cover to make it feel okay to blow babies up.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're pointing out something important, is that our so-called rational society has to have some way to justify its crazy things it's doing that can't. Yeah. None of the justifications are rational. So we need things like climate change and whatever.
So you have to make it up. You have to make up this idea that your enemy is uniquely evil.
Yeah.
And is doing something called the war crimes, which doesn't mean the person in the group in question isn't doing bad things in war. But it is. If anyone says that, it's like pot, meat, kettle. And it's a nonsensical
thing to try to define. Because, I mean, if you're at war, like, what is war? There's no...
Right.
Chivalry is a thing of societies that had beliefs in common. Like, chivalry is something that white people made up to make their wars less awful in Christian Europe. And also certain Asian cultures, like ancient China and Japan, also had chivalric codes, and I'm sure some others.
It is, and it is also the result of a stratified who's military and who's not.
Yeah.
Whereas now,
like all that's out. Like that world is over.
That world is over. Like in the past, you had a caste of people who were the warrior caste. And now you have basically a civilian military where it's just pulled from the civilians. And the civilians, this was the argument in World War II for just bombing the hell out of everybody. And we're going to talk about some Mandela effects with bombings in World War II. But the rationale was, look, the civilians the civilians are running the factory that makes the bombs, which shoot us. Therefore, that's a legitimate target. And then people would go, well, we could hit the factory, right? But then the people that work in the factory live in that suburb, so we could hit the suburb, because that would stop people from going to the factory to make the bombs. And then there are other people over there, and they make the food, which feeds the people that go to the factory, which make the bombs. And so it was all could be connected as a war. Like, everything became a legitimate target in World War II.
Yeah.
Like, it all was a legitimate target by that sort of reasoning. And because that is sort of like, you have to have this giant industrial factory base to support a modern army, that sort of makes sense. In the past, like, the only real ongoing production you would have would be the guy that made arrows. Right?
Yeah.
And now everyone else was sort of unconnected to the war. You didn't have to, because your suits of armor were already made, and you had your sword and your spear.
I mean, you had to have supply lines for food, but...
Well, most of the time, like, armies would just take whatever food from the people they just fought were at.
Yeah.
That's how they would go on campaign. Like, they would be wandering through Spain, and they would stop at a town and be like, give us food or we will stab you. And they'd give them the food, and they'd march on. And that was about... And so people... The civilian population was largely unconnected from the military population. And that has not been true since World War I. Actually, since Napoleon. Napoleon ran the first modern military campaign where he used the civilians, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've mentioned this quote of him before, but people would... He had a couple of good ones. Like, people were like, his army is untrained or whatever. He would say, you can't defeat me. I waste 100,000 lives a month or whatever. It's cannon fodder, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then they would also mock his army as being untrained, and he would say, quantity has a quality all its own. Because he was just surge rushing everybody.
Yeah.
He's just like, listen, I don't have any trained troops, but taking the entire countryside of civilians and just throwing them at you. And that's overwhelming after a while. And so, really, Napoleon started this where the separation between a military and the civilian base sort of breaks down, and that can be rationalized as anyone is a legitimate target now, which is the thing we've been struggling with. Like, that was a big problem in the Afghan war when we pretended to care about such things. It'd be like, well, everyone seems to be a person that might be hiding a terrorist in their house, or knows who one is and isn't speaking up about it. And it sort of made everyone suspicious.
Yeah.
You know, and so often there was a tendency to just, you know, and many servicemen and women were not this way. You know, granted, they were above this, but there was a bit of like, shoot first, ask questions later, especially in the early years of the Iraq War. And you can be like, you know, when people are like, well, you're just doing whataboutism. Whataboutism. You're like, what about America? That doesn't excuse Russia. But whataboutism is a perfectly valid measure of morality.
Yeah, as is the slippery slope argument.
As is the slippery slope argument.
These rhetorical devices are very useful. Get thrown out on zero grounds.
Zero ground.
You just sneer at them.
Jesus used whataboutism every day. Like, oh, you want to be forgiven? What about all that unforgiveness you have? You know, he used whataboutism. Or the Pharisees asked him, like, why don't your disciples follow the thing? And he'd be like, what about your commandments you break to follow your tradition? You know, he used whataboutism every day. Because one of his claims was that you'd be judged exactly as you judge others. Which means whataboutism is the most valid. Right? Way. So scream whataboutism all you want, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You should at least be honest. If Putin is a war criminal, then so is every American president for the last forever. And if Russia is guilty, then the U.S. is too, tenfold. Now, actually, Russia isn't in anything. This is a thing I don't like. Russia isn't really... You can't bring Russia up on charges. Like, you have to point at people.
Yeah.
You know, like the USA is a dead corporate entity. But so I guess the point is that war crimes are not something people actually care about. They're just a moralistic weapon levied at our enemies that allows us to feel good about killing them.
It's a great basis upon which to throw a false flag also.
Oh, yeah. It's a great one. And there's other ones besides war crimes. Like when you don't have religion to use. Like they used pedophilia against the Muslims in the early days too. Like they're doing Baki Bazi or whatever that thing was, where they had like boy dancing boy. And yeah, they did a little bit.
I mean, that's true though.
It was true, but it's like, but to connect it with Muslims, like as though Muslims bad.
I mean I think that practice is technically against major tenets of Islam.
It's against all. Yeah,
I think that's more of a regional practice that transcends
like that's
religion.
Those people aren't practicing Islam.
Yeah.
Like, that sort of behavior is explicitly against Islam, and it says that you should kill such people. Like they should be executed under like Sharia law. So like connecting that to Muslims is just like, it's a way to get the Christian right in America to be like, And they did the same over there in reverse. In Afghanistan, they viewed the war as like a Christian crusade against them.
Mm-hmm.
Because over there, they still believe in religion and that can still work. But like to us, does it feel like we were doing a Christian attack?
Lol.
Like exactly. I mean, it's like the church wasn't like in charge of the war. But over there, it feels, like... So, war crimes, international law, the whole international... International law just means what NATO countries say, which is a roundabout way of saying America mad at you. That's all it means.
Right.
And the links we go to obscure the brute power of the empire of nothing that we operate in is endlessly exasperating.
Well, everybody we've gone to war with since 2001 has had the interesting... commonality in the fact that they've all tried to get oil commodities and things like that sold and traded in currencies other than the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, including the current one with Russia,
right?
Where they're trying to do the same thing. Muammar Gaddafi's great sin was trying to put his country on the gold standard.
Yeah,
and then Hillary Clinton cackled about how he was murdered on TV for that. Because she's an evil witch that wants a hot dog with no bun.
What?
That was in those leaked emails, the Bethesda emails.
Oh,
there was one
all that weird
like,
food code stuff.
Well, I don't know if it was code or if she's just weird. And because like, what do you want for lunch? And she was like, a hot dog, comma, no bun, please. Signed H. And it's like, what kind of person orders just a plain hot dog with no bun?
Yeah, that's bizarre. I mean, maybe she's on keto.
Yeah, but then do something better than a hot dog.
Yeah, like a
ribeye. She has millions of dollars. Get a steak or something.
Yeah.
A hot dog is only pleasurable if you have a bun and like ketchup on it and some relish at a baseball game.
Yeah.
Beyond that, like, what are you doing? That insults me more. Her lack of taste. The lack of taste insults me more than anything.
It's embarrassing for our country, really.
It's embarrassing for our country. I just wish that the rich people in America had better, like Jeff Bezos dresses like a buffoon.
Yeah.
And it makes me, and his wife is weird and made of plastic.
It is funny to me how he has become Dr. Evil.
Yeah, he just sort of morphed into looking like Dr. Evil. It's just good. And then you got Zuckerberg, who looks, I think he intentionally tries to make himself look like Data from Star Trek.
Absolutely, yeah.
With waxy pale skin and like making those weird mannerisms. I'm not sure what his end game is, but that can't be his real persona. He can't be that strange. So they all do this. I mean, Steve Jobs at least had a little bit of personal style, even though he always wore the same thing every day, and that was annoying. His turtleneck and jeans.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bill Gates looks like an elderly pregnant grandma. So they're all, it's just, that insults me more as their aesthetics than anything.
I wish somebody would tie that man's arms to the chair the next time he gives an interview.
Well, just say like when he starts talking, just like look at him and go, but aren't you a felon though?
Is he a felon?
Yeah, like weren't you like charged and convicted of like racketeering and like
This is news to me. What?
Well, the Microsoft got union busted.
I know there was a lot of IP theft allegations going on about Windows and.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the Microsoft committed so many antitrust law violations that they actually did something about it, and like broke up. It was this whole thing, and then he's like wanted for crimes in various countries in Africa, and of course they don't have any jurisdiction to get him. And then someone could also be like, but what about the Epstein Island though?
Yeah.
Like just when he's talking, like on Oprah.
He gets real squirmy when that comes up.
Why did you go there like 17 times?
Yeah.
It was for philanthropic purposes.
Yeah. You'd be like, oh, philanthropic purposes. Does that mean raping children?
Philanthropically.
Whatever. Philanthropically. Yeah. Just that's all you'd have to do. Like you don't even have to be like time to church. Just like when he's on the thing, when he's on Ellen, if Ellen would just be like, yeah, but what about
that journalist, whoever it is, Ellen's
though?
career would be over that day, and they know it.
It would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do it.
I know you would.
I would, if I had a late night talk show, I would torpedo it in an instant to do that. Just, but yeah, that Microsoft, this is a dictatorship might actually be better and more honest for the people, because at least there's like one guy to blame.
True.
Like you run out of food and it's his fault.
It's when something goes wrong in this country, everybody, like nobody's responsible for it.
Yeah, it's the bureaucracy empire. Nobody's responsible for anything ever. The entire Afghan war, it's numerous war crimes.
Yeah, like everybody responsible for the COVID nonsense will be retired by the time the butcher's bill comes due. Like where's Fauci?
Yeah.
He's been gone for months. He's been going to parties and that's it.
That's all he does, and that's because it's always everything is decided by committee and governing bodies and think tanks, and you can't prosecute those.
Yeah.
It's the guilt is distributed across the bureaucracy, which is why I think the most evil thing ever done, the most evil invention of all time, was the creation of the Dutch East India Company.
Oh, okay.
Them and the Hudson Bay Company, because the idea, which was sort of a novel new social technology at the time, that you could create a body, a corporation, right? There was an entity unto itself, a person unto itself, who could own things and sell things and take legal action and such. Is like the most nefarious thing that's ever been done. It allows every evil in the world to be done by no actual living man or woman, right? To take the fall. It's all like, well, the Dusty India Company did some insane things. I mean, it was. You talk about an evil company, but it's like no one's actually at fault because it's just the bureaucracy and the HR department said it. It's always like the companies. It's like no actual man or woman ever gets tied to the evil because of the bureaucracy of the Empire of Nothing. As an aside, I've mentioned before, but George Washington, first flag he flew under was the East India Company's.
Yeah, yeah.
And why do you think the protest was over tea? Because it was a corporate, like, being angry at taxes for the royalty.
There you go.
The American Revolution was largely these big companies trying to end the egregious tax they had to pay when importing tea to the British colonies and British Empire.
So the U.S. project was a tax shelter?
Yes, the U.S. project, freedom was a tax shelter. And it's what it was. The Dutch East India Company was like, and the other ones were like, listen, what if we just had a place to sell the tea where the crown couldn't get, because the average person didn't care about the tax of tea. It wasn't that much for them. It was huge for the people bringing in loads and boatloads of tea.
Yeah.
And they were like, let's gin up rage against them. and just shoot the people giving us the taxes, and then the corporate body will do it, and that will be. I mean, that's how George Washington was largely funded in his initial days, was through these companies. So, Indecide. But that's what we've created, the world's first empire of bureaucracy, where every evil is permitted and no one's ever at fault for anything because the guilt is distributed. And be it a government body or a business or whatever. Nestle can sell their poisonous baby formula to Africa and never get any problem over it, which is the problem they did for a while. They ran ads that said I think Nigeria, that said breast milk was bad for babies and would hurt them, and buy our formula instead.
You kidding me?
No, that's a thing. And on some shoddy science that they themselves funded, right? And then that went on for 2 years, not 2 years, 2 decades, and then people stopped doing that there. I mean, they did that in America too. There was breastfeeding for 20, 30 years in the U.S. was seen as backwards.
Yeah, only poor people did that. Yeah.
Yeah, even though that's better for your health, baby's health, it's better for the mother's health, it's better for IQ. All these things, which is so crazy to think about. People were fooled about that. But it was based on these studies these formula companies funded, which they then published and ran ads about. And then they hurt the health of a generation of babies.
All the boomers were raised on baby formula.
Yeah, they hurt the health of a generation of babies. The boomers would have had, 6 points higher IQ on average, each one of them, if they had breast milk. They would have had less autoimmune disorders. All this is provable. Like babies raised on that are operate better. They're healthier. But no one in Nestle and all these things are ever going to take the fall for it, and never did, because who's he going to fault? Like, put Nestle in jail. You can't.
Yeah, they just end up at worst paying a fine.
Mm-hmm. That's it. And so these companies, I mean, they're just the worst. Modern company law is, I mean, since the Joint Stock Act of like 1832 or whatever in America, it's just been out of hand. Where you can just, I think that was the act that made it where the common man could incorporate for like $5 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all been downhill since. I mean, like I have two companies. One of them even has a bank account. There's no money in that account. Right? And neither business does anything. But I have them. I own these two legal entities. I don't know why I have them. But I do. Right? As another aside, there's this statistic floating around that 50% of businesses fall within the first year.
I believe that.
Yeah. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's like in the first 2 or 3 years or something, technically. But I don't know why. Like because you literally never have to like terminate it or anything. I don't know why people dissolve their company.
I don't think they actually dissolve it. Well, unless there's a tax bill due. I think if you want to get out from under that, in some cases you have to dissolve the corporation.
Yeah, that's probably true. But like mine, they just hang out. They're just like stagnant little.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know why people deregister, dissolve businesses. You can just have them forever. Like maybe one day I'll buy a house in their name or something, and then I could never be foreclosed on. Like it would just like I did not pay that bill.
Pretty sure the bankers will get what they want.
Well, yeah, but legally you couldn't fault me for it. Like it wouldn't hurt my credit score,
right?
Like it's that stupid business thing, which is just some paper that I mean, maybe I'll, and I think there's like a small state fee every year or something for it, but it's on auto pay and it's not anything. So I'm not sure why people dissolve. You can just use companies to like shield yourself from every credit problem you could ever have. And if they fail, you can just make a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And none of it carries over to the new one. It's amazing. People are always like, these companies never pay taxes. Well, like you do that then. You can order one like in my state, you can get online, pay a fee, and it's instantaneous, and now you have a company. And then you can like register things in that company's name. You can like have a car owned by that company, and then if you don't pay it or it wrecks, it's like nothing happens to you. Just your dumb company, and then the company then you can get rid of the company if it has a bad credit score and just make another one.
Yeah,
it's amazing. I don't know why more people don't do this. So because you can use all those tricks that they use, and nothing can happen. Like there's no if you have an LLC, the credit of the LLC cannot affect you in any way, but yet you get all the benefits of it. And people get mad at Zuckerberg for taking advantage of this. You just do it too. Why does anyone own anything in their own name that could be affected to their credit score? It's mind-boggling.
Well, especially in a legal environment where you don't really own anything already. Mm-hmm. Because if 1 year goes by, you don't pay the tax bill, it's taken from you. I know there was I read an article about homeowners in Michigan that had like a $9 outstanding tax bill. And the state just said, well, we're taking your home. And they seized this guy's home over $9, and he had a terrible time trying to, because he was not aware that he owed the money. Uh-huh. And obviously real estate is being worth some. I mean, this is just obvious piracy, state piracy, doing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to collect the taxes. They're trying to take the house. And so then what happens to the house is the guy, and this was done at like the city or county level, the seizure. Mm-hmm. And so the county then donates the house to a company or some kind of nonprofit organization that's like the beautification company of that county, where their deal is just to like rehab and sell properties, that are in distress for the beauty.
Sure.
On paper, it's they're trying to keep property values up and keep the town looking nice and all that stuff. But the that company is run by the mayor and his wife. So right. and that corporation makes the money. Like it's basically house flipping, but the government seizes the houses for you.
It's genius. Yeah. Why don't we do that? You can't. If you just make a company and start buying things through the company, nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's all the company's fault. And then the company, like, this company's bad. You're like, oh, that company is bad. Oh, I distance myself from it. And then it's like you're the only employee and owner. It's like, I distance myself from it. But like legally that works. It's like that's like what an LLC is. It's like, well, it's like it doesn't make any sense. But you can do that too. I don't know why more people don't do that. Like just if your credit's bad, open a company and then buy things through that. Mm-hmm. And it can have its own new credit card. And you just it's like totally a restart. You can even make a company named your own physical name. So it's not confusing. Like if your name is Dave Smith and you're like, Dave Smith's credit score is in the toilet. You can just open an LLC called Dave Smith LLC with the operating name of Dave Smith. And you're off to the races. You can do that 100%. There's no, and people do. And I don't know why more people don't do this. Like just, that's what it's for. It's sort of like, I don't know, an IQ test. Like, do you want to, the paper is there to manipulate the paper, I guess. Mm-hmm. Just, and you get to do fun things. Like sometimes I order little CEO placards for myself and just sit them around the house. Because it's technically true.
Yeah.
And me and Tim Cook just make a little CEO thing and put it on my bedroom door.
There you go.
And you remember, our LLC that we have. Mm-hmm. Remember how silly and fake that was?
Yeah. But
we had to have a meeting for record keeping purposes.
Board meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, a board meeting. And I was like, I motion to motion. And you were like, approved. Does anyone object? And I was like, I object. And then you're like, wait, And then you just go around And that's basically all the big companies do anyway. That's how it works at Apple. You know, Tim Cook is just going around vetoing things and then being gay. With Johnny, whatever happened to Johnny Ives? Miss him.
I don't know.
Is he still there?
People got tired of chamfering. That was his one trick. So he was out.
Yeah, he tried to make everything look like it was like a notebook. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like he would put the little stitches on the side of the iCalendar thing. Oh, he's gone. It says after Apple now. 2019. He moved to an independent firm called Love From. So, I don't know what that is.
Do they own an island or something?
It says it's known to keep Love From is known to keep a low profile and does not disclose information about its employees. So who knows what that's
That's
about.
interesting.
I don't know what Love From is. It sounds like that's something to dig into.
Kind of sketchy.
Kind of sketchy. Anyway, okay. Describe for me the Mandela effect. What is it? You know about the Mandela
the
effect.
idea that things that people remember being one way at some point, and were in fact one way at some point, were like retroactively changed to have happened another way. So it's altering the timeline in the past.
Yeah, that's a good summation. So I think what's important about the nature of the Mandela effect. Okay, so like we'll be like, listen, like if I tell you about like Star Wars has changed, right? And Star Wars has changed. Like what is Darth Vader said forever to Luke?
I am your
The
father.
most famous line. Yeah, he doesn't say that anymore. Oh, he says, Luke, I am your father. You know, now he goes, no, I am your father. Which no one remembers it being that way. Right? And people will say, well, you know, George Lucas did a bunch of remasters and he edited the thing and blah, blah, blah. And you go, no, that's not what I mean. Right? I'm not talking about recent edits, or that if you go online, the most recent version will say the new thing. Or even that they went back and redubbed the old thing. I mean, if you get out your VHS copy from like 1983 that you haven't touched in 40 years, right? And you pop it in, the physical medium will have somehow changed to meet the new reality. Right? That itself will have changed. Like, if you say there's something in a dictionary that's changed, you say, well, I mean, they publish a new version all the time. You go, no. I mean, like, go back in time and go get the old one sitting on your shelf and open it, and you will find that it has changed. And so what we're talking about here is very important. It's some sort of supernatural change in the physical world such that the timeline and what everyone remembers appears to have altered. Okay? And that's interesting because it's sort of like, you can't really debunk it. Also, like, you can't really 100% confirm it either, which makes it sort of in this nebulous zone. Because, like, people will go on, you'll be like, I have a Mandela effect about the Wizard of Oz. And then what people will do, what debunkers do, is they get on Google and they go, was it like this? And they'll show a video clip of it being that. And they'll be like, see, it was always like that. Debunked. Completely missing the point.
Right.
They're like, no. I know that it's changed to that now.
Why does everybody remember it differently?
Why does everyone remember it differently? Like, for instance, did you know the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz pulls a gun?
What?
No one remembers this happening. Nobody. But if you go back and watch The Wizard of Oz now, if you pull out your Wizard of Oz VHS from 1,000 years ago, pop it in, there will be a scene where they're in the woods and they're a little afraid, and the Scarecrow pulls out a revolver.
Interesting.
No one remembers that at all. And then he just puts it away. And then, I mean, it's not good. I mean, if a guy doesn't have a brain, he shouldn't have a gun.
Yeah.
Not good gun safety. You know? So, it's this idea that reality is fluid the plasticity of reality, that it's molding and changing around us, that things are, it's sort of like in Back to the Future, when they go back and then they do something and then the people, they're there for a while, but then they start to fade out of the photos. Right? And it's like the timeline is adjusting to meet the new one, and there's a time when they're like overlapping. That's sort of the claim being had here. So, now a lot of people will say, very reasonably, listen, this is just a mass misremembering of history. And maybe. But I'm going to give you some reasons why that may not be so. Because of the residue. The residue is interesting. So, I'll just talk about some examples just to sort of wet the palate.
All right.
Okay? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that show?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Would you be mine? Would you be mine? Would you be my neighbor?
Now,
Now,
you're singing the Daniel Tiger version.
yes, I am singing the Daniel Tiger version. Because my brain has been polluted by 10 years of children's cartoons. I can tell you everything about PJ Masks.
Oh, yeah.
And I know the My Little Pony canon backwards and forwards. But so do you remember, can you sing the song for me?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
That's all I remember.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't say that anymore.
What?
Doesn't say that anymore. If you get your VHS tape from a million years ago, or you look at it online or whatever, he now says, it's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. A beautiful day for... Now, you can say like, well, that's just a little thing. And these things are never big, right? They're seldom big. There are some big ones. But it's these micro edits to reality. I'm going to discuss some ones that are pretty big, actually.
Okay.
But these micro edits to reality that everyone remembers, like, wait a minute. That's not quite... Now, here's what's interesting about that. Remember the Tom Hanks movie, which came out not long ago, about Mr. Rogers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where he played Mr. Rogers? Yep. So, let me get this right. Tom Hanks, Mr. Rogers movie. So they announced that the name of the thing would be, this is when the Mandela effect started, right? It's crazy. This one started in 2019 when people started to notice it, because that movie came out in 2019. So there was this Mr. Rogers movie coming out, and they didn't know what the name was, and then they announced the name. They said it's a taken from the theme song, and the name of the movie came out, and it was A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you would click on it, and it would take you to the article about it, and then it would show you, and it would say A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is the title from the theme song. And then you would click on the theme song, and it would go to the theme song and go, A Beautiful Day in This Neighborhood. Right? And that was when it started. So like they named it in the movie the way everyone remembered.
Yeah.
And then you click the link, and then it was the new way. And there was a person that died on that one, on that movie set, and was the sound engineer, like the person who would have noticed most.
That's a little weird, but
just a bit interesting. A bit weird.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So that's one. That's a nice one. Do you remember Stouffer's stovetop stuffing?
yeah.
Never existed.
Yes, it did.
Never has existed in this
And
reality.
I helped.
Everyone remembers it. Everyone thinks they ate it. But it has never existed. In this reality, it's always been Kraft. Never been Stouffer stovetop stuffing. They've never had it.
You're a liar.
Go try
What
to find
the heck?
some. Go try to find any evidence that such has ever existed. In this reality, it's all... People will be like, I ate it all the time. Like, I know you did. That was in the old timeline.
It's
Now you're in the new
Stouffer
timeline.
stovetop. Stouffer's stovetop stuffing. Where's the...
Try to buy something.
Well, I mean, it must have existed. Like, maybe they changed the name, right? I'm going to have a meltdown.
That's what some people say. But I'm going to tell you about that. So let me go.
Okay.
I'll go to this. This is something that'll happen because people like look it up on the thing and they'll be like, I'm going to give you an example of one that changed in real time.
Okay.
This is one, Brian Stavely, who records a lot of this, has gone over because people be like, I can find it online or whatever. All right. So if you remember, I don't know if you remember Haas avocados.
Yeah.
HAAS, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, now it's Hass, HASS, which means hate in German. Haas avocados.
No, it's 2 A's.
Well, I know. This is a similar thing with Stouffer stovetop stuffing where people be like, no, I remember this thing, right? It's a similar thing. It was 2 A's. Now, so what happens is you will now find everything is HASS. And he watched this one happen in real time, like the edit change. And he was talking like, I noticed this one because he keeps a vigilant eye out for any Mandela effects. People send him stuff all the time. And he said, I remember the Haas avocados. And then I started seeing it online as HASS. And I was like, no. And so then I get on there and I'm looking around and I see, okay, here's someone selling HAAS avocados on Amazon or whatever. They're great. I'll buy those. Timeline fine. Clicks on it. Says, gives him an error. Even though clicks on it again, gives him an error. Clicks on another time and it tells him this product does not exist. Then he hits backwards, like go back, and it's to the HASS one. So
it's like things are being corrected as people encounter them?
Yes. Like as you go.
That's a weird wrinkle in this story. Okay.
It will be edited. Sometimes you'll see it happen in real time. And people will like they'll see like and so some people will like they said, well, I was able to order the HAAS one, but when it arrived it was the HASS. And so like the icon on the computer had not yet swapped over to match the new reality. And the thing is, you won't find any history on this is a big caveat. The official versions of everything change almost always. But the personal versions of things often retain the original nature. So like a great one is the creation of Adam. Remember that one?
The painting?
The Sistine Chapel?
Yeah.
Painting. So this is what some of the residue we talk about. In the residue, so there's all these, that's such a famous painting that people have done countless parodies of it. Like there's one with like God reaching down and touching Bart Simpson. There's one with like a football player reaching down and touching another football player to like give him his mojo or whatever.
Right.
All of these parodies, all of them that you find, are like God above, the God character reaching down and touching Bart Simpson or whatever who's below, and he's reaching up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which everyone remembers.
Yeah.
So everyone is parodying it the way we all remember it, the way they all perceived it at the time. So the unofficial ones can remain that way. But now, if you go look at the Sistine Chapel, Adam's hand is actually slightly higher than God's, and they're on the same level. Like man has risen up above God. Right?
Weird.
But all the parodies maintain the original, the way we remember it. So that's an example of like what we call in the biz residue, like these unofficial versions where everyone is doing it one way. Everyone seems to act like this is the thing. We have evidence, that photographic evidence, written evidence that this is how people perceived it, but now it is not. Another great one of this, the Heisman Trophy. Describe the Heisman position for me.
Dude's like running with the ball, got it tucked into his chest with his one hand, and he's got the other hand out in front of him like he's gonna straight arm somebody.
Right. What are his legs doing?
I want to say he's got one knee up like he's running.
Right, correct. Now, you'll find pictures of Bo Jackson, pictures of all kind of college athletes after they score a touchdown doing the Heisman pose. You'll find pictures of NFL players, like all these famous guys over 50 years doing the Heisman pose. All of them, football tucked in, right arm out in stiff arm, leg up, knee up in the air, right? That's not the Heisman position, and never has been in this reality.
What is it?
Well, now he has both feet on the ground, and his arm is sort of more out in front of him instead of out to the side. It's a minor change, but why does everyone remember and in doing the Heisman pose cock their leg up? Every single person, when that's not what it is.
Okay, as we've been talking, I've been looking for Stouffer's stovetop stuffing images, and there are a couple, but they look like they've been. They're not like a photograph of an old box. They're basically somebody talking about the Mandela effect, putting the Stouffer's logo on the Kraft box. So it's like the same box, just been photoshopped for purposes of like making a title card for the video.
Yeah, Stouffer's stovetop stuffing never existed in this reality.
But the boxes, there are photographs of old boxes and old let me see this one. But they're not, none of it says Stouffer's. It doesn't say Kraft either. It just says stovetop. But Stouffer's stovetop stuffing was a thing. Like, you say the whole thing.
That was in the old timeline. Not anymore. And I know it's upsetting because people remember it very clearly. Just like they remember the Heisman Trophy, you have 1 foot up, but he's never had that. You will find no official evidence of any Heisman Trophy ever in the traditional Heisman pose. Which is strange. Because we have all this residue of people like doing the pose, right? But that it itself has changed, even if their paraphernalia around it has not. So, okay. That's interesting.
But Stouffer's Foods is a real company that has other things that have the Stouffer's image on it.
Yeah.
But not the stuffing.
Correct.
Not the stovetop stuffing.
Right.
I'm bugging out.
I know. I know. Another one is another one. These are just small ones. I say we'll get to some bigger ones. The Raisin Bran Sun, the sun, never had sunglasses. Everyone remembers him with sunglasses. The Monopoly Man has never had a monocle.
Wait. Back it up.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that the Monopoly Man does not have a monocle?
And never has. Never has. Mickey Mouse never had suspenders. Many people remember him with suspenders.
I remember him with suspenders.
Never one time, and not in any movie, not in any old cartoon, not in any Disney thing ever. Now, people who made Mickey Mouse costumes often made him with suspenders because that's how they perceived it at the time, and you can find evidence of that sort of residue. But you never an official version of Mickey Mouse. Curious George never had a tail.
What?
Chick-fil-A has never been spelled CHIC. That's not how Chick-fil-A has ever been spelled in this reality. Even though everyone remembers Chick-fil-A being CHICFILA. Right? But it's always been CHICK, Chick-fil-A. Even though we all remember it being that way. Right? Sinbad was never in the movie Shazam.
No, that was Shaq.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And so there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of the singulars going into plurals and vice versa. These are small edits, right? Like I sang in the song, "The City of Angel," which is not how anyone remembers it. If you build it, build a dream.
They will come. Yeah.
Right. Now he says, if you build it, he will come.
No way.
He says, if you build it, he will come. If you build it, he will come. Now, here's an interesting one. C-3PO has a silver leg.
What? Why?
Well, he just always did. Now, the Star Wars movies may be the most watched movies in history.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Since the 70s. No one noticed C-3PO had a silver leg. One of his legs from the knee down is silver. Now, the rest of his body is the golden color.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But in 2016, USA Today put out a video entitled, "Why You Never Noticed C-3PO Had a Silver Leg." In 2016, this movie's been out for decades, and everyone on Earth until 2016 missed the silver leg until then. Nobody. There's no toys with the silver leg. There's no, I mean, not since, since there have been. There's no, no one drew him with the silver leg. Just in the movie, and I don't mean in the new edits. I mean, if you pull out your original copies from decades ago and pop them in, he will now have a silver leg. And everyone on Earth missed him having a silver leg. How is that possible? Why in 2016 did everyone just notice and they were like, oh yeah, he always had a silver leg. Yeah, he always did.
I'm looking at action figures of CP3O, and none of them have a silver leg.
None of them ever had a silver leg because he didn't have a silver leg. But now he has a silver leg. Right? Another Star Wars one is many Mandela effects garbles. At the very end of the movie, Chewie used to get a medal along with Han and Luke. Remember?
Yeah, I haven't watched enough Star Wars to know that one, but I haven't really watched enough to know that one, but
okay.
I'll take your word for it.
At the end of the movie, Princess Leia would give a medal to Han, and then she'd give him a kiss on the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
A medal to Luke, and then a kiss on the cheek. And then she wouldn't kiss Chewie, but Chewie was so tall, it was comical. He had to bend way down, give him a medal, and then he would go roar and stick his fist up, and then the movie would end.
Okay.
Now he doesn't get a medal anymore, which is sad. He should have gotten a medal.
So are you telling me that that's something that everybody remembers him getting a medal, but if you watch the movie, he doesn't get one?
Correct. He doesn't get a medal. Then no more medal for Chewie. Right? Silence of the Lambs. What's the most famous line? Well, maybe. He says,
Are the lambs still
Clarice? You remember that one?
Are the lambs still screaming, Clarice?
Yeah, hello, Clarice. Remember that?
Yeah.
He never says hello, Clarice. He just says good morning.
But didn't Jim Carrey do a spoof on that?
Yeah, this is what people will say. I think you're remembering.
Well, I think the memes were created later by other references. Right. So, hello, Clarice, I think was Jim Carrey, and then the Luke, I am your father. That's Chris Farley in Tommy Boy with the fan.
Mm-hmm.
He says that, but and maybe that's where the meme was created, not in the movie, but in Tommy Boy,
which is something people say, and maybe so, right? Maybe that is what's happening.
Okay,
it could be. Now, one that's pretty intense for me, and this is in relation to the COVID stuff, because I feel like all of the, the reality edits shift with the reality, like how the narrative changes. Have you ever heard of the HIPAA Act? HIPAA?
Yeah.
How do you spell HIPAA?
HIPPA.
And what does it stand for?
Health Information. So I don't know. Patient Privacy Act.
Yeah, I think it's Health Information Privacy Protection Act.
Okay.
HIPAA doesn't exist anymore.
What exists?
HIPAA. HIPAA, which is, so people lost their health privacy during the COVID thing, and the word privacy was removed from the act retroactively. Everyone remembers, everybody, and this is when I dealt with a fair amount, HIPAA.
Well, this says Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Which it just wasn't. It didn't used to be that. It was HIPAA, HIPPA. It just wasn't. I don't know how to account for that one. It was the Health Information Privacy and Protection Act, but that has gone away.
And that one's a weird one.
Yeah, it got changed from like all the official legislation, all of the wild. Everyone remembers HIPPA. Everybody. But it's just like, oh, no. That was never the case. It's always been HIPAA. And you're like, what? No. Like, why does everyone remember it it's okay. Our people remember it wrong. Fine. Why does everyone remember it wrong the same way?
I mean, that's a little weird in the case of HIPAA.
Yeah. It's very strange. Okay, here's a big one. Speaking of, what was the first major attack on U.S. soil?
I mean, I want to say Pearl Harbor, but I don't think that's it.
Yeah, Pearl Harbor was the one we were always taught. And then 9/11, right? Now there's another one that you never heard about. No one ever heard about. Ever. Called Black Tom. Black Tom.
What?
And this just... In 1916, 2 German spies snuck into New Jersey and blew up a munitions depot with 1 million pounds of TNT, injuring 120 people in New York, killing 5, and threw a baby into the river. It blew out all the glass in the buildings of Lower Manhattan and somehow damaged the Statue of Liberty so bad that nobody's ever been able to go back to the torch since 1916.
What? And this happened when?
1916.
16?
Yeah, allegedly. So the reason you can't go to the torch is because of this terrorist incident in 1916. Now, people remember having gone to the torch, living people. Like, oh, you go, no, I went up to the torch. Right?
Do they think do they think they're in the torch when really they're in the crown?
Well, that's what some people have said. But here's the question. Like, one, why did no one ever hear about Black Tom before?
Yeah.
This thing. I mean, it's a pretty big deal, you know? And then 2, it's been over 100 years. Could they not have repaired the stairs to the torch or something since then? You know, like, why is this still being they even renovated and did a restoration of the entire statue from 84 to 86. But they did not, and which included repairs to the arm and a new gold-plated copper torch, but did not repair the supposed walkway up to the torch that has supposedly been blown up by this, which people remember going into. No one ever heard about Black Tom. No one in New York City ever heard about this event. But now it is the reason that the torch is inaccessible.
That's weird.
I know. I don't like that one at all. There's a bunch of... The Germans continually retroactively attack us in the past, which may be evidence that the Nazis have a time machine in Antarctica or something. I don't know. But did you know that in 1941, 8 U-boats now sank 50 merchant marine ships, killing 5,000 Americans off the coast of North Carolina? It's called Torpedo Alley. No one ever heard of that before.
I've never heard of that. I mean, that just maybe because I'm not like a big war buff.
Germany also bombed New Jersey in 1918. Blew up about 40 buildings, called the Kingsland explosions. Germany hit our soil all the time now.
Germany bombed New Jersey like with bomber aircraft?
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Kingsland. Well, it didn't used to happen.
How did they get them here?
Exactly. It didn't used to happen, but now it somehow, this is official.
I don't think you can fly a bomber all the way across the Atlantic and then back.
There's many logistical problems with this. But one of the explanations is, does someone have a time machine? Like, in the future, does someone invent a time machine, and would this be the evidence of it? Like, what would the evidence look like if someone did? Maybe they're going back in time and being very careful to try and change it as little as possible, yet nonetheless, their actions produce micro changes in the timeline that we notice. It's as good an explanation as any. You know, that would be one possibility. I mean, I guess it's worth asking, if someone did have a time machine, how would you notice?
Right.
So maybe time travel is possible in the future, and we are experiencing the maybe all this Mandela effect stuff is a result of that.
Okay, so if a time travel could affect things all over the physical world, like taking the Stouffer's name off the box of stovetop, but it doesn't affect people's memories, what does that say about the nature of memory or time?
That would say something about that the person's memory or soul or consciousness is not fundamentally connected to the physical reality, or is outside of time. That our consciousness is an eternal consciousness, that the soul is eternal and exists outside of time. Right? So even though time may change, we will exist across all the timelines. I don't know.
It's an interesting notion. So then what if this is caused by time travel? Why the weird, why doesn't anything important change?
Well, some important stuff has changed. Like, I would argue the Black Tom stuff is sort of interesting, big.
Right. Okay, so the whole Nazis attacking us in the past to try to change the course of the war. That at least, logically makes sense, but it doesn't explain how also stovetop stuffing got.
Well, I mean, this is why I say maybe someone is being very careful. Like, maybe they have a time machine and they're going back in time and they don't want to mess up the past. So they're just like going and they're like observing, they're just like, let's go back and witness the birth of Jesus, or let's go back and watch the Gettysburg Address, which is also changed, by the way. And then maybe he's doing these little things, and then he's trying to be but just the nature of him being there slightly changes things, which has a ripple effect. Right? Like, he just has a tiny butterfly flapping its wings, tiny ripple effect, which creates these micro edits through time that build up over time. Like, for instance, 7 years ago, our forefathers set upon this land. Everyone remembers that. You remembered it in school. You memorized it. Now, Abraham Lincoln does not say forefathers. He just says our fathers. Everyone remembers forefathers. Everyone memorized it as forefathers.
Interesting.
But he does not say that anymore. There's more Nazi edits, like Werner von Braun. His name has changed. It used to be W-E-R-N-E-R, and now it's W-E-R-N-H-E-R. Which is not a huge one. Maybe that's just wrong. Not all of these are convincing to even me, but in aggregate, there's a bunch of them you're like, I don't know. It's a little weird. Like, Hitler has blue eyes now. He didn't used to. That used to be like a huge slam against him.
He had dark brown eyes.
Yeah, I know. Now he has blue. He always had blue. There's Bible changes, which are pretty big. What animal lays down with the lamb?
The lion?
No, not anymore. Now it's the wolf. And the wolf shall lay down with the lamb.
No way.
Yes. If you dig up your Bible that your great-grandpappy had off the shelf, it will say, and the wolf will lie down with the lamb. Even though everyone remembers it used to say lion. Moses now carries tables of stone, not tablets of stone. Carries tables of stone. The word matrix, just like the movie, is now in the Bible 6 times.
I mean, could this just be modern translation? Like, when did the word matrix
that's what I mean.
come into being?
You can go back to the earliest versions that you can find of your KJV Bible or whatever that your grandpappy used to have. And it will say things like tables of stone, or the wolf lays down with the lamb, and all these things. Right, that people do not. It also doesn't say where 2 or 3 are gathered, 2 or more are gathered, there I am with them. Now it all says where 2 or 3, which, I mean, they're small changes. The lion,
I remember it as 2 or 3.
I do too.
Isaiah 11:6, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fatted calf together.
Right.
And little child shall lead them. Interesting.
And that's the way it is. And like I said, Moses carries tables of stone, not tablets of stone. There's some ones in your human anatomy, which is interesting. Where's the heart? If you could describe it.
Middle of your chest.
That's right. That's correct. It's directly behind the sternum. Now everyone remembers it being on the left-hand side. Remember that?
Yeah, because you would put your hand over your heart, and everybody, when you said the Pledge of Allegiance, and everybody put their hand over their left pectoral muscle.
Right.
Instead of the center of their chest, which I don't know why we did that. But I think that could just be from training during doing the Pledge of Allegiance as a child.
I agree with you. That could exactly be what that is. There's other anatomical changes that have affected the human mind, like the kidneys. Like the whole reason the kidney punch was illegal is because the kidneys was an exposed organ that could have a lot of damage behind it.
Okay.
If you punch in the kidney. Now the kidneys seem to be up higher behind your rib cage, a little bit. It's strange.
Oh, weird.
You know, like all those the idea of like on heavy metal albums or whatever, the snake going into the one eye socket of the skull and coming out the other. You know, that doesn't make sense anymore because now there's like the sheet of bone between. It's these are just strange. The way everyone remembers anatomy being one way. Now, you could say very reasonably that this is just people being misinformed on anatomy. But I've even asked doctors, like, do you remember the heart being on the left side? I'm like, yeah.
Oh.
Not.
Well, I mean, doctors have sort of...
Maybe doctors are just stupid. Maybe. You know. But there is no A in cemetery. The word. Anymore. Now it's all E's. Cemeter. Everyone remembers it being cemetery.
Yeah.
And they'll write it that way, but not cemetery. In the Disney movies, a similar one, 101 Dalmatians. Spell Dalmatian for me.
Dalmations.
Yes. That's the way people wrote it. You can find lots of residue of people writing it this way. But now, Dalmatian has never been spelled like that. Now it's spelled I-A-N, like Martian, Dalmatian.
Is that not how I spelled it?
You spelled it O-N. Everyone thinks it's O-N, but it's A-N.
No, I spelled it. I spelled it A-N.
Maybe you
Just
did.
now.
We'll have to go back and listen. Maybe I'm incorrect.
All right. When I do the edit, I will notate that.
Maybe. Now that's an interesting thing though. If you did say it O-N and then it's A-N.
So yeah.
Number one, if that did happen on the recording, I am not wrong. That's just a Mandela effect that happened in real time. I was still correct. Number two, that's an example of things people do. Is you'll ask them things like, "Do you remember this?" And they'll say, "Oh yeah, it was like that." And they'll say, "Well, it's not anymore." And then it's almost like they receive the download from the universe and they'll go, "Oh yeah," and they'll just spout off the Wikipedia article about the new thing that they 4 seconds ago had never heard of and remember the old way.
So like you don't get the upload until you think about it.
Until you refresh the page, you don't get the upload.
And then there's okay.
Yeah, like the Limburg baby was now found.
What?
That's a big change. Yeah, the Limburg baby used to be like the baby that was abducted and never. The Limburg baby was now found weeks later, and it was all fine. That's weird. Like I said, the Wizard of Oz, the Scarecrow pulls a gun. The witch never says "Fly, my pretties, fly." She just says "Fly, fly, fly." There's tons of ones with the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Slightly different. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. So, tons of little micro edits, right? Tons and tons of them. Some of them sort of substantial. Like, this is one that people will swear by, although I don't have a strong opinion on it. Is that they will be like, listen, South America used to be pretty much directly under North America. And now it's like moved to the east significantly. So much so that the Panama Canal used to run east-west, but now it runs north-south. People have this strong memory and are very intense about, no, this is what it was. But people also feel the same way about Cuba. Like if you could describe Cuba, tell me where it is on a map and it's vague. shaped proportions?
Off the coast of Florida, southeast of Miami.
Uh-huh. How big is it?
Pretty big. I mean, like bigger than Florida.
Yeah. So a lot of people remember it as being small. And then again, this could all be bad misremembering.
Yeah.
Right? Could all be.
Maybe they're thinking of I bet they're thinking about Puerto Rico.
Maybe. But now Cuba is almost touching Mexico. Which is,
yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Cuba is about as far away from Mexico as it is from Florida, which I don't remember being the case. But if you look at it on the Google Maps or any other
now,
map,
in fairness to your experiment, when I answered the question about Cuba, I had already pulled up the map of Panama and was looking at Panama. Now,
okay.
It was not
So
labeled. I was just, but I saw all the shapes, and yeah, Cuba is longer than the peninsula of Florida on the map.
Yeah, and it's
so maybe I don't know if I would have answered
Cancun.
Different had I not had a map up.
Yeah,
I guess
it's really quite close to Cancun. In fact, it might be closer to Cancun than it is to Miami.
Yeah, it's neck and neck. Yeah, pretty close.
And people, in fact, including me, don't remember it being that close to Mexico. Maybe our geography is just bad. Like I said, all of this, but in aggregate, there does seem to be something going on. Like, here's a good one. Do you remember the statue of the thinker?
Yeah.
Let's see which version you remember. Describe the thinker pose.
Let me see. Like, I have to do it. So he's sitting. One foot is up. Both feet are down, but one foot is like placed higher than the other. It's up on something. And then, so like, that would be his right foot is up off the ground on something, maybe against the chair. I don't know. And then he's got his right arm on his right knee and his chin on his right fist.
Okay, so you remember chin on fist.
Yeah.
Okay. Many people remember chin on head or fist on head, like fist on forehead.
Oh.
Now this is a small thing. However, again, like I said, if the actual thing changes, the residue doesn't oftentimes. There are numerous, and I mean like in the thousands, photos of people going to the thinker statue and posing in the thinker pose beside it and taking photos. Like, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the pose. So many of them. In fact, in one case, a group of like 50 school children are doing the pose in front of the statue with the hand on the head. They're right there beside it.
Oh, weird.
Mimicking the statue.
You think you'd get it right if you're at the statue.
Right. But everybody is doing it hand on head.
That's weird.
And that is a bit odd.
So I would consider that actually a pretty good case here because,
right.
If the statue is changed, but each instance of a person taking a photo wasn't changed. Well, like the statue in the photo changes, but the person's pose doesn't because that would require something else.
Exactly.
That's interesting. That one's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. The Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse.
Shut up.
Which is strange because even he himself says he remembers doing so.
Wait. Ed McMahon didn't do the Publishers...
Never went around to your door with a big check.
Who was doing that?
Nobody really knows. But it wasn't Ed McMahon. Everyone remembers that being the case.
But stop the show. This is... That was... You're telling me that Ed McMahon wasn't running around... I love Ed McMahon.
I do too.
I try to base my podcasting persona off Ed McMahon.
Uh-huh.
This is bugging me out, dog.
And he even has mentioned before in the past that he thought he did that.
He did do that. He did do that.
That he did that.
He did do that. He was Johnny Carson's sidekick, and he did the Publishers Clearinghouse.
He's never been employed by that company.
The heck is going on, man? What?
I know. Joel Osteen is now Joe Osteen.
No, I never heard Olstein. This is always Osteen to me.
I always heard Olstein. I still get tripped up on the Ed McMahon one. There's tons of little logo ones, like the VW logo, the Volkswagen logo has changed. It used to be the V and the W were merged, and now they're split. Tons of little ones with like logos and these things. Again, movies. Life is like a box of chocolates is now life was like a box of chocolates, which doesn't make any sense in the movie because his life isn't over.
Again,
I think was like a box.
I think Jim Carrey did that. That was a.
But no, because on the actual VHS box that's still there, the residue has him quoting him saying, "Life is like a box of chocolates." But then you pop in the movie and he says "was," which is
weird.
It's a bit strange. So, and there's so many of these. There's so many of these where everyone remembers it the same way, supposedly wrong. That you begin to wonder, did actually time itself, and is the human consciousness immortal, the human soul, and then it's outside of time, and so time can change around it with it still maintaining its memories. And then we just say, well, to maintain continuity, we just say, well, I guess it was always like that. I must have misremembered. You guys are remembering a parody. You're remembering a this or that. You're confusing this with that other thing. And then that's just what we're doing to maintain, consistency when really there is none. Is that possible?
I mean, if it weren't for the Ed McMahon and the stovetop thing, I would not. That's because I don't personally.
There's always one or two. So most people don't have strong convictions about most stuff.
Yeah.
Because most people are like, I didn't really pay that much attention. There's always one or two where people like really like, I did that for me, it's the HIPAA one. Like I worked with HIPAA frequently and it was always HIPAA and now it isn't. And that is like, well, no. I remember it being that way. Like, we had to like write it all the time. And so I don't know.
Huh.
But for you, it's Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon, yeah.
And Stouffer stuffing.
And for me, Ed McMahon is a much bigger deal than the stuffing because I can see him in my mind showing up with the giant check.
I can too. I mean, the silver leg on C-3PO is also very glaring to me because he did not have a silver leg. Like C-3PO having one of his legs from the knee down being silver instead of gold was not the case. And it's glaring to look at. Like, pull up an image of C-3PO with silver leg.
Yeah, I did while we were recording, and it's
weird. Like, you would have noticed that. Like, it's obvious. But he doesn't. He's the most gay robot, by the way.
Well, doubtless.
Someone made a joke. I don't remember what it was that C-3PO and R2-D2 are like a gay and a lesbian. Like you call the lesbian to actually get stuff done, and the gay guy's just wandering around going, "Oh my," which is sort of true. Like, oh dear, and then the lesbian's like, fixing stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of ones. One big one for some people. This is one that ladies may get. This is one that may mess ladies up because women really pay attention to color. Chartreuse.
Mm-hmm.
You know that?
Yeah,
color?
like
what would you describe it as? You may not.
It's like a fluorescent yellow color.
Okay, so you have an even different one. Most people think it was magenta pink. In reality, it's a shade of green. I don't think anyone remembers it being a shade of green.
It could be. I mean, at least my understanding of chartreuse is it could be like a greenish, bright, very bright electric yellow color.
Okay. Well, yeah. So a lot of women are pretty.
I'll ask my wife what
convinced.
chartreuse looks like after we're done here.
Yes.
See what she says.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy, the Queen at the "We Are the Champions." He never ends it with "of the world."
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't. That doesn't. There's no recording of him ever doing that. We are the champions of the world. Never, it just fades out. Never says it. And like I said, so my wife doesn't like my wife really hates Mandela effect. So I annoy her with it. Right?
Like she hates it, like she doesn't believe it, or it freaks her out.
Oh, it freaks her out. She doesn't like it.
Okay.
She hates more than anyone her reality to change. Lucy, Ricky Ricardo, and I Love Lucy never never one time says, Lucy, you have some splaining to do.
I think that might be another, like, someone doing an impression.
You can always, most of them you come, he never says that.
And it might be Jim Carrey. What if Jim Carrey is like a time traveler?
Yeah. I mean, he's a good candidate, if anybody is.
All right.
Ricky Ricardo actually says, Lucy, splain. Splain. Which is good. I want to steal that one. Splain. But, yeah, so there are these, my wife hates it because, for two reasons. One, she doesn't like her reality change. But also she told me, she said, I object to the idea that someone would mess with something that stupid. She's like, who would go back in time and change Stouffer's stovetop stuff?
Yeah.
That's such a dumb thing to spend a time machine on. Or what have you. And I get that sentiment from people. But my position was like, hey, that maybe they're not trying to. Maybe this is just side effect edits that happen when you do time travel. These are little tiny, like maybe you can't help but affect things a little bit. Or another perhaps more freaky reality that I somewhat believe in is that the world is made up primarily of consciousness and then our collective consciousness, as we merge together on the internet more and share stories, it is actually retroactively changing what happened.
So you blame the internet for this?
Maybe, or it may have always happened. It may have always happened.
So when two groups of people encounter each other in pre-internet world that have two different timelines, the timeline has to merge, and so one of them is going to get an edit?
Yeah, because if you think about it, this is something I brought up on the show when I talked about like the impossibility of things existing before consciousness. The worlds only exist in like there may not be like an objective reality where like existing apart from conscious observers. It may not be possible. So if you've got two different groups who've had two different observations of reality coming together, they have to merge in some way. And maybe we are just now all merging on such a degree that these things are no longer syncing up 100% properly.
So is this like the universe sort of renders as people observe it?
Yeah, the universe renders as you observe it. That may be very well what happens. You know? So
and there's a degree of like uncertainty, or it may not render the same way. Or what, does something go unobserved for a long time and then when it re-renders it could be different? Is that how you're going?
Yeah, it re-renders or it re-renders to make the most smooth transition with the most number of people.
So it could render differently. So something that is very seldom observed, might render differently on two different occasions. And then if those two people observe it, even in their memory at the same time, it has to resolve. So does remembering something cause the same rendering thing to happen as observing it with the five senses?
I don't think so, because we often remember things incorrectly.
Right.
Which is a big point of like this Mandela effect thing. And I would buy that except for all the residue. Like the C-3PO never had toys with a silver leg.
Right.
Which is something that nerds would care about. The people in front of the statue of the thinker are all doing the old pose. The Ed McMahon was definitely in Publishers Clearinghouse, but now he's not, right? I don't buy that the Black Tom is why we can't go up in the torch of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, I feel like I would have heard about that. Or New Jersey getting bombed by Nazis. Like, what's that about?
Or, yeah. There's just so many of these little ones where it's like, but no, that one, though, I'm certain. And everyone else remembers it with me. So maybe.
Do you think that the bombings in New Jersey thing got sort of memory hold because America wants to maintain the idea that the mainland has never been successfully attacked by a foreign power?
I mean, yeah, but it wouldn't make sense to do so after Pearl Harbor.
I mean, it's an outlying island. It's not really mainland.
Okay. I mean, it could be memory hold, but then that's why you can't go up in the torch, though.
I mean, yeah, it's a little weird.
And in 100 years, we've never repaired it. And so I don't know, but I do think there's something to this idea that, like, well, it's like if no one's observing it, then does it exist? And I've argued that maybe not before in the past. So then, if 2 or 3 or more or several 100,000 people are observing the same thing or have observed in the past, then that has to resolve somehow. The wave function has to collapse into some reality. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's how this occurs. Maybe reality is much more plastic than we imagine. And maybe the dark magicians I've talked about in the show before know that and are using that for their own purposes. To rewrite history for their own doing. See?
So what you're saying is Jim Carrey is a dark magician.
I don't know about Jim Carrey. Tom, not Cruise. The other Tom. I was just talking.
Tom
about.
Green.
No. Who used to?
Tom Selleck.
No, he was cool. Forrest Gump.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, he's the creepy magician.
Maybe.
And he gave me this cough.
Settle down.
He gave me this cough. But no, Tom Green, whatever happened to him?
Tom Green show was great comedy for a while there.
It was. My favorite one was when he was helping this guy in a wheelchair get out of his van and like move into his wheelchair in like a Walmart parking lot. He was like trying to do acts of kindness for people. And the guy was like, okay, on 3. And Tom Green goes, no, on 30. 1, 2. Before they'll move together. Just that sort of stupid comedy.
I'm going to go back and watch.
Which made up the 90s. That's why. So maybe that's how it all works. I don't know.
Maybe. Hey, nobody's hollered at me about bird flu.
Send $200.
Yeah, send us $200, please.
Everyone, send it. Buy me a coffee. There'll be a link in the show. Send $200. If you don't, they'll change the Bible more.
Can't have that. Take some ivermectin, man.
Have any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top of us.